But the real spark, the moment that turned a quiet concern into full-blown speculation, came from the neighbors. Several people living near Christine and David claimed that things hadn't been peaceful at the house lately. One neighbor said they'd overheard tense conversations, another claimed there were late-night arguments happening more often than before. And while none of this confirms anything, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Especially when you consider the final clue, David himself seemed off. Normally the cheerful, goofy, camera-ready husband, he suddenly stopped appearing in Christine's content altogether. No posts. No stories. No updates. Nothing. It was as if he vanished from her online life overnight, and for fans invested in her happiness, that silence felt louder than any argument ever could. So what exactly is happening? Why is Christine suddenly distant, stressed, and avoiding the one person she claimed was her happily ever after? Is this just normal married life, or is there something deeper, something far more dramatic unfolding? Stay with me, because what comes next is where the real story begins. Christine's silence didn't stay quiet for long, because the moment fans began noticing the missing photos and the shift in her behavior, more information started bubbling to the surface. And it didn't come from Christine, or David, or even her close circle. It came from people who had interacted with them recently, people who claimed the couple's public happiness had been hiding cracks for months. One source said Christine and David had been arguing about lifestyle differences, something that seems small on the surface but becomes enormous when two people come from completely different emotional histories. According to this insider, Christine has been struggling with how fast everything in her life changed, from escaping a decades-long unhappy marriage to suddenly remarrying, blending families, and rebuilding a future she once thought she'd never have. And even though she loves David deeply, the adjustment hasn't been as smooth as outsiders assumed. But the biggest reveal came from someone who attended a recent family gathering. They said Christine and David barely spoke to each other the entire night. Christine sat with her kids, laughing and smiling, while David hovered near the kitchen, talking mostly to one of his own relatives. At one point, a witness claimed Christine tried to pull David into the group conversation, but he responded with something short and stiff, causing her to retreat and plaster on a polite smile. To those watching, it felt awkward, forced, like a couple trying to hide the fact that something was very wrong. Then came the moment that really ignited the rumors. Christine's wedding ring was gone. During a casual cooking video, viewers noticed her left hand was bare. No ring. No comment. No explanation. And for a woman who proudly showed off her wedding band for months, the absence spoke volumes. Fans immediately flooded the comments, asking if she'd taken it off on purpose. Some speculated she removed it before filming. Others wondered if she'd been crying and forgot to put it back on. But the most unsettling theory was that she took it off because she no longer felt connected to the marriage it represented. And then, as if the universe wanted to confirm everyone's suspicions, Christine posted a story late that night. It was a simple quote, white text on a black background. It read, "Healing isn't linear." Nothing more. No caption. No context. No explanation. And that was when speculation turned into full-blown panic. Because Christine doesn't post vague emotional quotes unless she's struggling. Unless she's hurting. Unless something has shaken her. And while fans were still trying to figure out what was happening, a voice from the past stepped forward, someone no one expected to hear from in the middle of Christine's marriage speculation, a family friend familiar with both Christine and David. They claimed Christine had been dealing with unexpected challenges in her new marriage. According to them, Christine's independent personality, the one she fought so hard to reclaim after leaving Cody, was creating tension because David wasn't used to someone who didn't rely on him emotionally. They described moments where Christine wanted space, freedom, or time with just her girls, while David wanted closeness, routine, and more time together. Two good people. Two different worlds. And a growing divide. By this point, fans were no longer asking, "Is something wrong?" They were asking, "How bad is it, and how long has this been happening?" Because every new detail pointed to the same unsettling truth: Christine's happily ever after might be hitting its first major storm. Things took an even stranger turn when a close acquaintance of the Woolley family stepped forward with details that painted a very different picture of Christine and David's marriage behind closed doors. According to this person, who claimed they'd visited the couple's home more than once in recent months, Christine and David had been clashing over something most fans would never expect: boundaries. Specifically, Christine's boundaries around her independence, her work, and her relationship with the Brown children. The source said Christine has been building a life she's proud of, a life where she travels, makes content, spends time with her kids and grandkids, and pursues her own passions freely. But allegedly, David has been struggling with the unpredictable pace of Christine's schedule, wishing she were home more, wishing they had more time as a couple, and wishing Christine didn't feel stretched between so many responsibilities. One moment described by the source was particularly telling. Christine had come home from a long work trip, exhausted and emotionally drained, but excited to share updates with her kids. Instead of joining her, the source claimed that David seemed irritated, asking her why she didn't come straight to him first. The witness described Christine freezing for a moment, as if she didn't know how to respond. It wasn't anger. It wasn't cruelty. It was a misunderstanding, a collision of needs neither of them knew how to navigate. And it wasn't the only one. Another person said they witnessed an argument during a family dinner because Christine offered to help one of her daughters move, while David had already planned a weekend getaway. Christine didn't want to cancel on her daughter. David didn't want to cancel the plans. What should have been a simple conversation became tense, heavy, and unsettling. But fans didn't know any of this yet. What they did know was that something changed online again. Christine posted a picture of herself smiling, but the smile didn't look real. It looked like a woman trying to convince herself she still had control over something that was slipping between her fingers. And the caption? Just 3 words: one step forward. But it was the comments beneath the photo that revealed what people around her were truly sensing. One of Christine's longtime friends left a message saying, "You've always been strong. Don't let anyone dim that light." Another wrote, "Your peace matters more than anything." These weren't random fan comments, these were people who knew her in real life. And they weren't talking about a cooking fail or a stressful day. They were talking about something deeper. Something heavier. Something Christine was trying very hard to hide. Even more alarming was what people noticed about David. He looked tired. Distant. Older. The usual goofy grins were gone. His selfies were darker, with captions that didn't sound like him at all. At one point he posted, "Not every day is simple." And although he deleted it minutes later, fans took screenshots instantly. The pattern was undeniable: the Woolley household was under pressure, and neither Christine nor David was doing a very good job pretending everything was fine. But the moment that truly set off alarms came from someone who had nothing to gain, a neighbor who claimed Christine had left the house late one night, alone, visibly upset, and didn't return for several hours. According to them, when she did come back, she sat in her car for a long time before finally going inside. Whatever happened that night, it was clear things were becoming harder to hide. Christine's new marriage wasn't just hitting a bump, it was facing a turning point. And no one knew which direction it would go next. The whispers turned into something louder when one of Christine's closest family friends, someone who had been cheering her on since the day she left Cody, finally broke their silence and shared a detail that shifted the entire tone of the situation. According to them, Christine had been emotionally overwhelmed by the pace of her new life, not because she didn't love David, but because she never expected rebuilding a family would come with this much emotional labor. They said Christine confided that blending families wasn't as simple as she once believed. Her kids were adjusting, David's kids were adjusting, and somewhere in the middle of that storm, Christine was trying to be the glue that held everyone together. But being the glue is exhausting. Especially for a woman who spent decades holding together a polygamous household that was already falling apart long before she found the strength to walk away. The friend described Christine as trying to be everything at once: a supportive wife, a present mother, a loving grandmother, a businesswoman, and a cheerful TV personality. But the act was stretching her thin. They said Christine has always been the type to put others first, to keep peace even when she's not okay, and that old habit has quietly followed her into her new marriage. What made things harder, according to the friend, was the subtle but growing disconnect between Christine's natural independence and David's preference for traditional partnership. While Christine thrives in a life full of family chaos, last-minute plans, and adventures, David prefers structure, routine, and predictability. He isn't used to a woman as free-spirited and self-sufficient as Christine, and Christine isn't used to someone needing so much emotional closeness so consistently. It wasn't a clash of love. It was a clash of rhythms. But then came the moment the friend said Christine broke down, literally. After a long week of travel, filming, and helping one of her daughters, Christine reportedly came home to a disagreement about something small. Something simple. Something that shouldn't have mattered. But when she walked into the bedroom and closed the door, the friend said Christine cried harder than she had in years. Not because she regretted her new life. Not because she didn't love David. But because she realized that no matter how far she ran from her old pain, a new kind of pressure had taken its place. A pressure to make this marriage perfect. A pressure to prove she made the right choice. A pressure to show the world she wasn't broken. And then came another piece, this time from one of David's relatives, who revealed that David had been feeling insecure, too. They said he'd struggled with the public attention, with the constant comparisons to Cody, with the pressure of being Christine's happy ending. He supposedly told a family member he didn't want to fail her. He didn't want to be the man who made her regret taking another chance. And that fear, that pressure, had reportedly been twisting into frustration. The kind of frustration that comes out as silence, or short words, or distance. Suddenly, the story wasn't about a broken marriage. It was about two people trying so hard to be perfect for each other that they forgot to admit when they were hurting. And while Christine's fans were starting to panic, those closest to her saw something deeper. This wasn't the end. It was a breaking point. A moment where the truth had to come out. But before it did, the drama was about to hit a much more public level. Things took a sharp turn when the drama inside Christine's home finally spilled into public view, not through a statement, not through a post, but through something far more unexpected, an awkward, unedited moment caught on live stream. Christine had gone live to talk about her new cooking segment, something fans were excited about, but David unexpectedly walked into the background. Normally, he would smile, wave, or join in, but this time, he barely looked at her. His expression was tense, brows knit together, and instead of greeting the viewers, he quickly walked past her with a frustrated sigh. Christine froze mid-sentence. For a split second, just one, her smile dropped. Her eyes shifted toward the hallway where he disappeared. And in that tiny moment, fans saw it, the exhaustion, the tension, the heaviness she had been trying to hide. She recovered quickly, forcing her usual cheerful tone, but viewers weren't fooled. Comments immediately flooded the chat. Is everything okay? Christine, you seem off. What's wrong with David? A moment later, Christine abruptly ended the live stream, saying she needed to take care of something. That was the moment fans realized this wasn't speculation anymore, something real was happening. And just hours after the live stream ended, things escalated even further. A close friend of one of Christine's daughters shared, privately at first, that Christine had been staying with one of her kids on and off over the past few weeks. Not permanently. Not dramatically. But enough to suggest she needed space. Enough to suggest she didn't want to be home. Enough to suggest that whatever was happening between her and David had reached a point where she needed distance. The friend said Christine was emotionally tired and trying not to show it, but that she had cried in front of them for the first time in years. That alone was shocking. Christine has always been proud of holding herself together. But it was what she reportedly said while crying that shook everyone who heard the story. I thought leaving Cody meant I'd never feel this way again. Those words cut deep. Because they weren't about David being a bad man or the marriage being toxic. They were about Christine confronting an old wound she thought she'd escaped, the fear of losing herself inside a relationship. The fear of becoming small again. The fear of being responsible for everyone's happiness but her own. What fans didn't know yet was that David had been struggling too. According to someone close to him, he'd felt overwhelmed by the constant comparisons to Cody, by the expectations fans placed on him, and by the reality of marrying someone with a complex past. They said David had tried to talk to Christine about feeling pushed aside, especially when she prioritized filming, business, or her kids, but he didn't know how to express himself without triggering her fears. So instead of talking, he pulled back. And that distance grew into something neither of them intended. At the same time, speculation online began picking up speed. Reddit threads exploded. TikToks went viral. Fans analyzed the live stream frame by frame, pointing out every expression, every sigh, every awkward second. And that pressure only made things worse. Christine and David suddenly found themselves facing drama not just in their home, but from millions of people watching from the outside. The perfect fairy tale was cracking. The foundation of their marriage was being tested. And neither Christine nor David knew how to slow down the storm that was building around them. But the drama was far from over, because the next part of the story came directly from someone who had seen the arguments up close. The real turning point came when someone who had seen everything up close, someone who had been inside Christine's home during one of the worst moments, finally spoke up. They didn't go public, not directly, but they confided in a friend who later shared the details quietly, and those details painted a picture far more complicated than anything fans had imagined. According to this insider, the tension between Christine and David had been simmering for weeks before the livestream incident. It began with small misunderstandings, missed calls, forgotten plans, mismatched expectations, but slowly those cracks turned into deeper emotional fractures. The insider described one particular night where Christine had spent the entire day helping one of her daughters with the kids, filming content for TLC, and managing her Plexus responsibilities. She came home absolutely drained. The house was quiet, the lights dimmed, and she expected a warm welcome or at least a calm night. But instead, she walked in on an argument already in motion. David was upset, not yelling, not aggressive, but deeply frustrated. He felt like Christine was disappearing into her old pattern of spreading herself too thin, trying to please everyone, and leaving nothing for their marriage. He said he felt like a background character in her life. And those words hit Christine harder than anything else had in months. Because that was exactly how she once felt with Cody. Hearing her new husband express a version of the same complaint shook her to the core. The insider said Christine froze, visibly stunned, and her eyes filled with a kind of fear she usually hides at all costs. She told David she didn't want to repeat her past. She didn't want another marriage where one person felt unseen or unimportant. She begged him not to compare her intentions now with who she was back then. But instead of comforting her, David admitted something she wasn't prepared for. He had been feeling insecure about her massive online presence. He didn't know how to handle the constant pressure of being the perfect new husband, the savior, the happily ever after storyline fans demanded. He said he felt judged, not by Christine, but by the world. And that judgment, that noise, had started creeping into their relationship in ways neither of them recognized at first. The argument escalated not into yelling, but into something worse, silence. The heavy, painful kind where two people who love each other suddenly don't know what to say. According to the insider, Christine walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and cried quietly. Not from anger, but from the crushing realization that even a healthy marriage requires confronting old wounds. She'd hoped that by choosing differently, she'd never have to revisit those old patterns again. But life doesn't work that way. Healing isn't linear. And love, real love, asks you to face the parts of yourself you hoped were gone forever. Meanwhile, as the insider explained, David sat alone at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, telling himself he didn't mean to hurt her, he just didn't know how to navigate life with someone who carries so much history, so much trauma, and so many expectations from millions of devoted fans. It wasn't that he didn't love her. It was that he was terrified of failing her. That night ended with both of them going to bed quietly, facing away from each other, something that hadn't happened once since they got married. And that was the moment the insider realized, this wasn't just normal marriage tension. It was a crossroads. A moment where both of them had to decide whether they were willing to do the work, not just for the marriage, but for themselves. And what came next was the moment fans had been waiting for without even knowing it. The next phase of the drama began when Christine finally opened up, not publicly, but privately, to someone she absolutely trusted, one of her older daughters. And according to a source close to the family, this conversation was the emotional breakthrough Christine had been avoiding for far too long. The daughter reportedly knew something was off before Christine said a single word. She noticed the tightness in her mother's smile, the heaviness in her voice, and the way Christine kept twisting her wedding ring around her finger, a nervous habit she hadn't displayed since the early days of leaving Cody. When her daughter gently asked what was wrong, Christine tried to brush it off, saying she was just tired, but the facade cracked quickly. The daughter pressed again, and that's when the truth poured out. Christine said she felt pulled in 1,000 directions, torn between her kids, her grandkids, her businesses, the show, her fans' expectations, and now the pressure of being a perfect wife and her second chance at love. She admitted she was terrified of disappointing people. Terrified of repeating her past. Terrified of losing herself. Her daughter listened quietly, and then asked Christine the question that cut directly to her heart, "Mom, are you happy?" The insider says Christine's answer didn't come right away. She sat there, staring at the table, tears collecting in her eyes, and whispered, "I want to be." That was the moment everything shifted. Her daughter wasn't angry with David, wasn't taking sides, but she told Christine something she needed to hear: "You deserve to be happy, but you can't carry everything alone." That sentence struck Christine like lightning. Because suddenly, she realized exactly what had gone wrong. She had slipped back into her old role. The caretaker. The fixer. The emotional anchor for everyone except herself. And while she was overcompensating to make sure this marriage worked, David had been silently waiting for her to just let him in. The insider said Christine broke down at that point, admitting that she didn't know how to be vulnerable in a healthy relationship. With Cody, vulnerability always came at a cost. With David, she didn't know the rules yet. But while this emotional moment was unfolding in private, something else was happening online, and it threatened to make everything worse. Fans had already started speculating wildly after the livestream incident, but when Christine suddenly canceled a planned appearance the next day, social media exploded with theories. Some viewers claimed she was hiding from David. Others said they had proof the two were secretly separated. TikTok creators stitched the live stream and declared it evidence of a crumbling marriage. None of it was true, but the volume of the rumors started pouring gasoline on an already fragile situation. Christine saw the posts. And according to the insider, she panicked. The last thing she wanted was for her marriage to be torn apart by public commentary the same way her marriage to Cody had been. She reportedly called David from her daughter's home, her voice shaking, and told him, "I don't want us to become a storyline." And for the first time in weeks, David didn't pull away. He didn't get defensive. Instead, he said, "Then come home. Let's talk." That conversation would become the most important moment of their marriage so far, the moment the drama reached its breaking point and Christine had to face the truth about what she really wanted. But how that conversation unfolded shocked even her closest family. When Christine finally walked back into her home after that emotional conversation with her daughter, the atmosphere felt completely different. The insider said Christine expected tension, expected another difficult night, expected the same awkward silence that had been weighing on them for weeks, but instead, she found David sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of tea, quietly waiting for her. He didn't look angry. He didn't look frustrated. He looked tired, yes, but also determined in a way she hadn't seen since the early days of their relationship. She sat down across from him, her hands trembling, and before she could even speak, David said something that completely disarmed her. "I don't want to fight you," he told her. "I want to understand you." Those 9 words broke the shield she'd been holding over her heart for months. For the first time, Christine let herself be emotionally honest, fully, openly, messy honest. She told David everything she had been swallowing, how the pressure of being a symbol of freedom was suffocating her, how she feared failing him, how she was terrified the world would compare him to Cody forever, how she didn't know how to be a good wife without losing herself. She even admitted something she had been too embarrassed to say out loud, that sometimes, the happier she felt, the more scared she became, because she had never known a relationship that didn't eventually crumble beneath emotional neglect. As she spoke, she started crying, her voice cracking under the weight of years of trauma she thought she had left in the past. And then something happened that shook her even deeper. David cried too. The insider said he leaned forward, ran his hands over his face, and admitted he had been struggling ever since their wedding day. He said he had never expected to be in the spotlight. He never expected to be compared to a man the world already hated. He never expected to be measured against Christine's entire past. And he confessed that he had felt insecure, not because Christine wasn't loving, but because she was so fiercely capable. He told her, "You survived a life that would break most people. I just don't ever want to be the reason you hurt again." But the most powerful moment came when he finally revealed the truth behind his distant behavior. According to the insider, David had been holding back because he didn't want to say the wrong thing and accidentally trigger the emotional wounds Christine carried from her years with Cody. Every time Christine came home stressed, exhausted, or overwhelmed, he didn't want to add to her burden by talking about his own feelings. He said he thought staying silent was the best way to support her, but now realized silence had become its own kind of problem. Christine broke down again, but this time, the tears weren't only from pain, they were from relief. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, they were finally speaking the same language. The insider described it as two people meeting in the middle after getting lost on different paths. And then came the moment fans would never forget if they'd been in the room. David reached across the table, took her hands, and told her, "We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be honest." That sentence changed everything. Because for Christine, honesty had always come with punishment. But here, in this marriage, in this moment, honesty was rebuilding something instead of destroying it. They talked for hours, long into the night, about everything, their fears, their expectations, their triggers, their dreams, their boundaries, and their mistakes. And by the end of it, the insider said Christine looked lighter than she had in days. But while the emotional breakthrough had finally happened, the outside world had no idea, and what Christine and David woke up to the next morning would test their progress in a way they never could have predicted. The next morning should have been peaceful after such a raw, healing conversation, but instead, Christine woke up to a storm she didn't see coming. Her phone was overloaded with notifications. Missed calls. Messages. Mentions. Tags. At first, she thought it was normal engagement from her followers. But when she opened social media, her heart dropped. The live stream clip, the one where David walked behind her looking tense, had gone viral overnight. Fans had reposted it thousands of times across TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and Facebook. The hashtags #IsChristineOK and #WhereIsDavid were trending. People were dissecting every frame like it was a crime scene. Some claimed Christine looked scared. Others insisted David looked furious. Many said the marriage was obviously collapsing. One viral TikTok even said, "Christine left one bad marriage just to walk into another," and it had over 1 million views. And the comments were brutal. People accusing David of being controlling. People accusing Christine of hiding some dark truth. People calling it the beginning of the end. Christine felt sick. She knew the internet loved drama, she had lived through it during her years with Cody, but this was different. This time, it wasn't just speculation about her relationship. It was a direct attack on the man she had chosen, the man she loved, the man she had just fought to reconnect with the night before. According to the insider, Christine's immediate reaction was panic. She didn't want the world to ruin this marriage the way the world had helped tear apart her last one. She grabbed her phone and called David. But instead of being angry or defensive, he answered calmly. He had already seen the videos. Already read the comments. Already felt the wave of online judgment hitting them like a tidal wave. But instead of shutting down, he said something that surprised her, "Let's not let strangers decide who we are." That sentence was exactly what Christine needed in that moment. Still, the damage from the viral clip triggered something deep inside her, the old fear of public embarrassment, the old trauma of being painted as the problem in her marriage, the old exhaustion of carrying the emotional weight of a crumbling relationship under millions of judging eyes. The insider said Christine began spiraling, pacing around the room, repeating, "I can't go through this again. I can't be the woman who stays in a messy marriage on TV." She wasn't talking about David. She was talking about her past. She was talking about the years she spent begging for scraps of affection from a man who openly admitted he no longer loved her. She was talking about becoming a storyline instead of a person. But just as her panic began to peak, one of her daughters, who had seen the viral clip too, came to the house and gave her a reality check. According to the insider, the daughter hugged Christine and told her, "You're not living that life anymore. You don't have to be scared of the world taking your story away. You're writing it now." Those words cut through the anxiety like sunlight breaking through a storm. Christine realized something then, something powerful. The drama wasn't the problem. The internet wasn't the enemy. The fear was coming from her past, not her present. And if she wanted this marriage to survive, she had to stop letting old trauma control new love. Meanwhile, David made a decision of his own, one that would completely change the direction of the public narrative. He decided he was going to speak up. Not in anger. Not defensively. But to protect Christine, their marriage, and the truth. And what he did next shocked everyone, fans, critics, and even Christine herself. David never wanted the spotlight. He never wanted fame, he never wanted attention, and he certainly never wanted to be dragged into online chaos. But when he saw the viral posts tearing Christine apart and painting him as the villain, something inside him snapped, not in anger, but in protectiveness. According to the insider, David sat down at the kitchen table, opened his phone, and typed out a message. Not a rant. Not a denial. But something simple, honest, and shockingly vulnerable. He wrote, "Christine is the best thing that ever happened to me. We're human. We have hard days. But we talk, we love, and we work through it. Please don't judge our marriage from a 2-second clip. We're good." He posted it to his private Facebook page, thinking it would stay within their circle, but within minutes it spread everywhere. Screenshots flooded Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. Fans were stunned. Some cheered, saying it was the first time they'd ever seen a husband publicly defend Christine with sincerity. Others analyzed every word. But overall, the tone shifted dramatically. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about a marriage falling apart, it was about a couple fighting for each other. Christine, however, hadn't seen the post yet. She was still wrestling with her anxiety, still pacing, still trying to calm her breathing, when her phone buzzed with a message from a close friend. "Did you see what David posted?" the text read. Christine's heart dropped. She thought he had gone online and made things worse. But when she finally opened the screenshot, she burst into tears. Real tears. Not stress tears. Not fear tears. Tears of relief. Tears of feeling chosen. Tears of realizing she wasn't alone in this fight. According to the insider, Christine immediately called David, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Thank you. I didn't know you felt that way." And David responded, "I should have said it sooner." That single exchange repaired something between them, something that had been quietly cracking for weeks. Later that evening, Christine and David made a decision together, one that marked the true turning point in their marriage. They agreed to go to couples therapy, not because they were failing, but because they wanted to learn how to love each other better without carrying the ghosts of their pasts. As the insider explained, this was the moment Christine realized what made this marriage different from her marriage to Cody. Cody never fought for her. Cody never owned his mistakes. Cody never spoke up to defend her. But David did. And that changed everything. The next morning, Christine posted a simple message to her followers, "Thank you for caring about us. We're working on things together. Love isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for." Fans flooded the comments with support. Bloggers retracted their dramatic breakup predictions. Even critics softened. The panic faded. The rumors died down. And the marriage that looked like it was cracking under pressure actually came out stronger than before. According to the insider, Christine and David spent that weekend together, phones off, cameras off, no filming, no obligations, just two people rebuilding their foundation from a place of honesty. They cooked together. They laughed. They talked about their fears. They planned for the future. And most importantly, they chose each other again. Not because the world was watching. Not because they felt pressure to prove anything. But because they genuinely wanted to. The insider ended their account with one final statement: Christine didn't fall back into another broken marriage. She stepped into a real partnership, one that requires work, yes, but one built on respect, communication, and love. And if that isn't the ending Christine truly deserved after all those years of pain, nothing ever will be. Christine Brown has always been the one Sister Wives fans root for. The hopeful one. The woman who refused to stay miserable, who walked away from a life that kept her in the shadows for years. Her journey toward happiness has felt like watching someone finally breathe after holding their breath for too long. And when she married David Woolley, fans celebrated as if it were their own victory. Christine had found love, a peace, and a partner who seemed to give her the life she always deserved. But now, that picture-perfect ending might not be as perfect as it looked. Because tonight, we're diving into the whispers, the quiet conversations, the unexpected tension, the strange behavior that has fans asking one question they never thought they'd ask again: is Christine facing a new wave of marriage drama? It all began with a small moment, something so subtle most people would have missed it. Christine shared a post that didn't feel like her usual cheerful updates. Gone was the big, bright smile. Instead, her expression felt tired. Almost guarded. Even the caption was shorter than usual, almost careful. And that's when the comments started. Are you okay? You look stressed. Is everything all right with David? Hours later, people noticed something else. Christine had quietly removed several recent photos of her and David from her page. Not all of them, but enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to make fans wonder what was happening behind the scenes. And if there's one thing Sister Wives fans have learned over the years, it's this: Christine never does anything by accident. Then came the second sign, one that hit harder. During a live video meant to promote her business, Christine was visibly distracted. She stumbled over her words. She sighed multiple times. At one point, she even paused for a long moment before saying, "It's been a lot lately." She tried to laugh it off, but the laughter didn't reach her eyes. And fans immediately knew something was wrong.